It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudists, and Naturists.
Welcome to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, greetings and welcome into Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 117 today. Really glad that you're with us to enjoy clothes-free living for the next hour. And we're going to have to dive in quickly today. We have a report coming up from ANDEE RODGERS and her husband Tom on the latest WINR tour. Lisa Monroe, of course, will pop in. And we will have part one of my interview today with relatively new Naturism author, not new to writing, but new to Naturism writing, Marcel Lamothe. So let's dive in right away, and let's hear from ANDEE RODGERS and her husband Tom.
Hi, this is Andy.
And Tom on the WINR I'm Perfect tour.
Well, we finally got to do our full presentation at Kixu Ranch last weekend. If you remember, we stopped by on our tour last year and met with both women and men since we were in that area. And at the time, Kixu is not officially open, so we met in a clubhouse that they use for different events when they're closed. But we wanted to meet with the members since we were so close by. This presentation was during the Northwest Convention, and we arrived early on Wednesday to help out in any way we could for the upcoming festivities. Kixu is a gorgeous club set up in the mountains. It's peaceful, it's welcoming. As you drive through the lengthy journey around the lake, it takes you a good 15 minutes, but they've posted many signs to make sure that you get back to the club. Really appreciate that. Members there are all welcomed us so warmly, and we enjoyed the gorgeous weather and their fabulous pool, which they keep warm to a comfortable 86 degrees with a wood-fired system there. So we were thrilled to welcome our president, Linda Weber, and her husband, Stan, to the festivities for the weekend. Linda talked with so many of the members of Kixu and could be seen doing so pretty much every time I was looking around to find her so that I could chat with her myself. And she joined me for my presentation that Saturday morning as well, and I was so happy to have her there. It was an early meeting, and Kixu provided us with mimosas to enjoy. And before beginning, we all shared how long we've been in the nudist community, and it ranged from 1 year to 30 years. Kathy Smith is a member of Kixu, and I was thrilled to have her there. And she was our longest standing member there, joining social nudism the 30 years before. So many of you know Kathy from her years of service to Anner and Anner Northwest. But it's always fun to hear how people find social nudism and the impact it makes on their lives. The women were so encouraging as I told the difficult parts of my journey. My favorite part of the story, though, is when I get to tell how becoming a nudist changed my life. Having lived with body shame for the first 50 years, and then finally being free from the self-doubt when I became a nudist, it was really a common thread for many of us there. The women in this community were so incredibly helpful in my journey to help me see myself as beautiful and worthy. So much so that I could finally be free from the worldly expectations that were put on me. Many of the women there felt the very same way. I shared the tips to help when that negative voice finds its way back in your head. Journaling your thoughts to get them out of your mind is one way. Naming that voice and then talking to it out loud sometimes to make it go away or tell it to go away. Encouraging each other by leaving notes or cards, sharing the value that you see in the women around you. I was fortunate enough to have my best friend at this presentation. She and I encourage each other by hiding cards in each other's homes, usually around 5 to 7 cards, and sometimes it takes months to find them all. She even remarked that there are still 2 of the 7 cards I hid back in March that she hasn't found yet. But she also said that You find that card when you're supposed to find that card, exactly when you need to hear what we've written in there. So we do write encouraging things to each other and sometimes just a funny story to make us laugh at past shenanigans we've been through together. I ended with my favorite quote from Nayyirah Wayeed, which you've all probably heard before, but it's always worth repeating. And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I have been waiting my whole life for this.
Well, after our great time at Greenhaven, we headed west for a 2-day trek to Kixu Ranch. We had great weather arriving. And meeting with our old friends, we wound up staying in their home for the whole weekend, enjoying all the people there poolside and up at the lodge on their nude deck where we had our meeting. And it was Saturday morning, which was early, but not too early for snacks and beer, so we indulged. As ANDEE was getting ready, we wound up with 13 gentlemen attending, some of whom have already been to one of our meetings, but wanted to sit in again and enjoy ANDEE's snacks and some beer. Well, of course, we talked about enjoying our way of life out in the sun, especially on this perfect day. Lots of stories were told, and of course, we talked about ANDEE and our responsibilities to tell other people who didn't know much about it. We all agreed we need to get the word out to support ANDEE so we can keep living this wonderful way of life. Much thanks to our Kixu family for amazing support and a fantastic convention. Until next time,
We'll see you down
the
road.
The terrific ANDEE Rogers and her husband Tom. We'll hear from them again in the not too distant future. And I did not forget, the pool was fine, the hot tub was ready to go, grill going full bore, fruits and vegetables off to the right, cold drinks off to the left, hot drinks inside, cigar bar in the back area of the pool, and the hammock outside. And now let's do it. I think I hear some music. Do you hear it? Let's listen together. Oh yeah, there it is. That can only mean one thing. It's time for the great, the terrific, the completely over the top, fully clothes free and fully smiling, our Naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. And here she is, the one of a kind, the completely over the top, fully clothes free and completely smiling, our Naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
Good morning, Frank. I'm doing quite well. And how are you?
Not bad. And by the way, every time I introduce you, I say, and completely smiling, which is true. Why are you always completely smiling? Do you know something that the rest of us don't?
Oh, it's usually something someone said in the lobby before I walk in here. No, it's fun. I enjoy this. So it's kind of a natural thing for me. So what can I tell you?
Yeah. I've always had the same affliction, for lack of a better term. People have always asked me, why are you always so happy? Why are you always in a good mood? It's like, I never consciously thought of it, but after they mentioned it to me, I did. And I thought, I guess it's because we have a choice. If something happens, let's say the mailman is an hour late, as an example, you can't control that. He or she gets there when they get there. Well, you can be really angry about that and throw tomatoes against the wall, or you can say, oh, well, I guess I'll just check in an hour. And so it is a choice that you make, isn't it?
It certainly is. And my dad used to tell me that the best thing to do is to wake up like a chicken every morning, because the chicken wakes up in a brand new world every single day. They don't carry over that, baggage and all that kind of stuff. So I've always tried to wake up like a chicken and just figure whatever happens today happens, and, go at it with a positive attitude.
Yeah, but even before we get to the point of waking up like a chicken and forgetting all the baggage, why have the baggage to begin with? This is strictly personal, and it's not related necessarily to anything that we do professionally. But I guess it could be related to naturism in terms of your outlook about yourself, your life, your circumstances. And certainly things happen that affect us, but then you have a choice. I can get really fired up and angry and just go to war over this, or I can just, okay, let's take it easy. Tomorrow's another day, and we'll check for the mail in an hour, and life is good.
that's true for anything that happens to us, something
Yeah.
tragic that happens to us. We go through the grieving process, but at some point we have to say, we have to go on. And so you start to learn how to put those things aside. You don't ever put them away, but you put them aside and keep going. And I think that's true for us as naturists because we have a lot of things against us. And so if we dwelled on the fact that we can't do this and we can't do that, and nobody likes me or whatever, it would be really bad. But our basic core value is go out and enjoy. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah, it's the old Bobby McFerrin tune, "Don't Worry, Be Happy." It's not a bad
Yes.
philosophy. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah. More than a few somebody's asked me, do you ever worry about anything? And of course, absolutely.
Yes.
I take everything very seriously, but I don't get angry over it, and I don't let the worry get to the point where it controls my life. Okay, this happened. How are we going to deal with it? Okay, we'll deal with it this way. Great. How can it be prevented next time? We could do this. Okay, great. And now we move on. Took 10 seconds? As opposed to being angry and ticked off and worrying for 3 years and losing sleep and all the junk that goes with it. So
I agree.
anyway, that's one of your famous words. Anyway,
Yes,
let's
yes,
move on here.
yes.
We do have a Patreon page. Everybody knows we gave up paid work to do this for free. A bad business decision, but one that we made intentionally. We knew what was coming, but then we had to ask you for help and support to keep the show going. And you've done that. You've stepped up. You've contributed to the show, and we appreciate that because expenses are being met. And Lisa Monroe, we actually have 4 brand new people today, PPPs, paying Patreon peeps. Who are they?
Well, it's great to see that there are 2 couples here, and one is Charles and Melinda, and the other is Consuela and Roberto. And so this is just great. Love to see this kind of couples coming in together and wanting to be a part of this. It's just terrific.
Yeah, very much so. So Charles and Melinda, thank you. Consuela and Roberto, thank you as well. And yeah, naturism is great alone. Naturism to me is even better when you have somebody with whom to share it. And, couples have told us, and we've experienced the same things throughout our lives. There's a greater intimacy when you share together whatever it is you're sharing. Could be a baseball game. You're both into baseball. The intimacy increases. Well, in this case, naturism. You share that, intimacy increases, the emotional connection increases, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And I think that, we can get joy from just about anything in life, but naturism is a completely different animal to me. It is so basic. It is just so you're who you are, and there's no pretense at all with it. And so I think it's one of the more enjoyable things couples can do.
Yeah, very much so. We hear that all the time. We appreciate both couples for being PPPs, paying
Yes.
peeps. We have a merchandise page. Everything is flying off the shelves there. And Lisa Monroe, what's the latest and greatest?
Well, the latest and greatest is thank you, everybody, because things are flying off the shelves. I just really appreciate the support that you've shown for the merchandise. And we've gotten great feedback on the quality, which is wonderful to hear. And so we just really appreciate it. And, we're always looking for something new, but we do have 2 brand new items for probably the last 2 or 3 weeks. And that's maybe I need to find another name for it, but it's called a fanny pack. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, it's a pack, and it can carry all your little things while you're out hiking or whatever. And also, we always want to have our phones with us in case someone needs to reach us. So there's let's just do a phone case. So there's also a phone case and has place for little cards, and you can slide a key in and everything else. So those are the 2 things that I hope will help the naturists out there as they go out and be naturists.
Okay. Now, I have literally seen merchandise flying off the shelves. They grow wings and they just fly off into the hinterlands.
Yes, they do.
But any truth to the rumor that towels have actually walked off of the shelf and walked out the door to be deliver themselves to somebody? Any truth to that rumor?
I am really proud of the beach towels because they seem to line up in formation and just keep going. And that's wonderful. And, so I think it's a really good thing. And I'm happy to see that. But yes, the towels are definitely, following suit and marching out the door.
Okay, sounds good. We have some emails this morning from a few listeners. The first one is from a gentleman, at least I think he's a gentleman. I didn't confirm that. Calls himself Tangerine. Lisa, remember that old big band song, Tangerine?
I sure do.
Not because we were alive back in the big band era, but because, they have records and recordings and
Yeah.
we do our research, right?
Yes, we do. Yes,
All right.
definitely we do.
Well, later on in the disco craze, they took all those old songs and made disco tunes out of them, and one of them was Tangerine. And so I still have both versions flying around in my head. Anytime I see the word tangerine, which has nothing to do with the gentleman who wrote in, I just thought I'd throw it out there for consumption. How about that?
Well, every now and then a little musical interlude is a very good thing, even if it's just discussing it. And if no one knows that song, go find one of those people because it's a beautiful song. I love it.
All right. I'll read the first paragraph. Hey, folks, I have a question. I'm probably overthinking it, and it might sound a bit egotistical, but here we go. I'm in IT. I am the senior lead of IT infrastructure at a Fortune 200 firm. Anonymity is preferred. Within the nudist community, how is this respected? You say you can't tell who's a doctor, a lawyer, a grocery store clerk, but we are in the digital age. Facebook, LinkedIn, Google exist so that anonymity only goes so far. That has to change the dynamic afterward, right? And why don't you take the next two?
You can be your authentic self and thus be discovered, or you can introduce yourself as nudist player number one. I love that. I'll get a t-shirt with that. Refuse to share your social info and see how many friends you can make that way in order to keep anonymity. Do people scroll their radio dial from hard rock to classical as Frank walks by so as not to look uncouth, not now knowing a bit of his history within the musical industry?
And I'll finish up the final paragraph. I know it's a weird question that probably boils down to personal comfort with whom you're acting with, but just wanted to get your take on it. Has sharing your 9-to-5 life ever gone wrong? Well, a couple of things here. I'll turn it over to you in a moment. I perhaps was in a unique situation. I was in high-profile positions, way up there on the charts. So when that happens, you become a bit of a target. You become highly respected. You also become a target. And I actually went to a nudist resort once, and this guy came up to me out of nowhere and just said, "Hey, how you doing?" I thought, what the living? And it was during the week, and there was hardly anybody there. And he wanted to talk about this, that, and the other thing, find out what I'm into, and it kind of crossed a few lines. And I just had, that intuition, like something is amiss here. This is not normal procedure. And sure enough, I found out later. It took me a couple of years. But one of my arch enemies had tracked me. They put a tracking device on my car or phone or whatever they did, and they tracked me to this nudist resort and sent this guy in, paid him, said, "Okay, stir up whatever you can so we can use it against him to take him down." Well, it didn't work. So in that case, I guess you have to be careful, but that probably is rare that happens. But the other part, you go to a nudist resort, you share your whole life, your 9-to-5 job. Can that backfire on you? And sadly, the answer sometimes is yes. But what I hear from a lot of people is that it really doesn't, because you can't get fired for getting naked on the weekend or, whatever you do at home. You show up at work naked, that could be a problem. Any thoughts on any of that?
Well, first off, as a former HR director, yes, if you showed up at work naked, if that was not, well, unless it's not in the dress code, I guess you could probably be fired.
Yeah.
But no, your outside activities as a naturist, completely, as long as they have an impact on your company, there should never be an issue. Because the main thing about outside activities in companies is that if that activity should shed a bad light on your company. So if you like rob a bank, maybe the bank you work for may not be happy or something along those lines. But I think for me, because I do a lot of consulting and I'm out in the public and all, I need to keep my anonymity, but I'm not necessarily worried about going to a resort and talking to people and saying, "Hey, this is what I do." But, it's a really tough question because nothing is anonymous anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point he made. With all the social media out there, LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, people can find you in about 5 seconds once they know your name. And especially if they know your name and where you're from or where you're living, they can just type in, Bill Smith, Montana. Okay, it might be 6 or 7 Bill Smiths. Well, you find the one that's approximately the age of the guy you talk to, and that's probably him more times than not. So I don't know. There isn't a really definitive answer for that because it varies from business to business, person to person. Some people are open books. "Hi, my name is, Sheila Jones, and I'm a nudist and I work at this company and I go to this nudist resort. And what's your name, by the way? Okay, great. And that probably works for her. But what if somebody says, oh, you work at that company? And they happen to know the boss or somebody that say, just so you know, Sheila Jones was at the nudist club showing it all. And that could get Sheila in trouble. So I don't know. There is no definitive answer that works every single time.
Yeah.
So I guess just use discretion.
I think you need to do what you're comfortable doing. And if you're not comfortable sharing a lot, don't share it. And if you feel you're in a situation where people are going to be respectful of you and you want to share more, then do that. But I would wait until I get to know people better. If you go to
Yeah.
the same resort all the time, wait until you get to know people and you'll learn the vibes and things that are going on in that resort from the people who are there all the time. I think it'd be a lot better to kind of just keep your cards close until you feel comfortable.
Yeah, but that's very similar to how you would behave in a grocery store. You wouldn't go down the spaghetti aisle and say, hi, my name is Frank Stone. I have a naturist show with Lisa Monroe. We get naked all the time. Nice to meet you. What kind of spaghetti are you buying? And, oh, what's your name? You wouldn't do that. That'd just be weird behavior. And so maybe just keep, like you said, keep it to yourself until you get to know the person. Just, hi, what kind of spaghetti are you buying? Oh, that's kind of nice. And maybe the 10th time you see the person, you get to know them a little better. So probably good advice just to, watch your P's and Q's and make your choice according to your feelings or your situation, right?
I think so. That's all I think any of us can do because a lot of times meeting strangers and being open with them can sometimes be a crapshoot, as they say. So it's, you just got to do what you have to do.
All right. We have 2 additional emails from a gentleman. I won't identify him by name because I did not ask permission. Lisa, if you don't mind reading the first one.
Always enjoy listening to your show every week. Thank you for your dedication. Last week's show, you mentioned Singer Island. This is where we usually vacation and have made many trips to Hollover as well as Blind Creek. Was intrigued by the unofficial beach on Singer Island. More importantly, exactly where can I find this beach? Any help would be great.
All right. And that's where I vacationed forever, had a condo there. Figured that would be my forever home. And it turned out, it didn't turn out that way for a variety of reasons. I wanted a different place. Nothing was available, whatever. Allegedly, there was a nude beach there. I never found it. I just never found it. I drove to where it was supposed to be, didn't see anything. And I wrote that back to this gentleman. What I'm told is you take this road, it begins to curve to the left toward the west, and off to the right is the nude beach area. Well, then he wrote back, I looked at Google Maps, and based on your description, it may have been taken over by real estate. I'm going to hold out for MacArthur having a section of beach for nudity. MacArthur is the park there. In the meantime, I'll continue to seek this place out or another before my trip in October. Last spring, I spent a week in Daytona Beach. With that, I spent every day on Apollo Beach. Every day. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very chill and awesome experience. Cost me $25 for the week for parking. I do suggest getting there early as there is limited parking, maybe 30 cars or so. Well worth the trip. And I've not been there, even though it's reasonably close to where I am, but I've heard the same thing. There are 5 parking lots. The 5th one is the nude parking lot. Only about 25, 30 cars can park there. Otherwise, you have to park in one of the other 4 and then walk, 57,000 miles to get to the nude part. But one of these days, Lisa, we'll get there and we'll be able to report. How's that sound?
Sounds like a field trip. We can talk about our experiences on Apollo Beach. That would be fun.
Now, can we drive there, or do we have to take one of those yellow buses that kids take when they go to field trips?
Oh, we can just take an Uber and let them drop us off, and then we don't have to worry about paying for parking. So there you go.
That's not a bad idea. I know some people who go there and they take their bike because they know they won't be able to park too close, and then they get out, put their backpack on, whatever they have, and then they bike it to the nude area. It's not a bad idea either.
No.
Well, congratulations to him, and maybe we'll get an update in October from him on if there is still a nude beach area on Singer Island.
Maybe he'll actually find one that we don't know about. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes, very much so. All right, Lisa, we're going to head to part 1 of my interview with Marcel, an author in the naturism area, and you'll be back here at the end of the show, right?
I will be.
All right, have a great clothes-free, fully nude and happily smiling half hour or so. We'll see you in a little bit.
All righty, I'll be back.
Sounds good. the very terrific Lisa Monroe as she goes dancing out of the studio. Wish I could get that on video and either, well, I don't blackmail people, but I think we should just post the video of Lisa Monroe dancing. She's turning around and giving me a very nasty look. But I think we should post the video of Lisa Monroe dancing out of here off to yet another cup of coffee. I think it would do the soul well for everybody to see that video. And I'll just leave that alone. Let's move along. Lisa Monroe does it all around here. We appreciate her very much. As a reminder, we are the official podcast of the American Association for Nude Recreation. Are you a member? If so, great. That is absolutely terrific. But if you're not, you can become one today. You can become one within moments. Just go to AANR.com, follow the navigation to membership, and within moments, you'll become a fully fledged member of AANR, just like I am and just like Lisa Monroe is. How about that? Well, you are listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 117 today. Thank you very much for being with us. And now let's get to part one of my interview with relatively new Naturism author, Marcel Lamothe. We are headed up the coast to New Hampshire today to talk to a gentleman who's a reasonably new author. He came out with his first book called The Naked Truth, Jane Cullen, Book 1. And his second book is either out right now or about to be out right now. All about naturism and discovery about all the great things in life. So let's bring him to the show and find out more from New Hampshire author Marcel Lamothe. Good morning, Marcel. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. Now, with the name Marcel, and we talked about this a little before we went on air, although I had this question in mind had we not talked about it. Marcel sounds blatantly French-Canadian. Is that reasonably close to the truth?
Yes. How would you guess? But yes, Marcel is kind of like Michael up in where I'm from, up in Quebec. It's very, 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 very common. I have my father and aunts and not aunts, sorry, nerves, uncles. But yeah, lots of Marcels.
Okay. Well, the only reason I know that is because I'm a long time, as in when I was 3 or 4 years old, a longtime fan of the National Hockey League.
Oh, okay.
Forever, all the great players came out of Canada. Now they come from all over the world, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of Marcels have played back in the day. Marcel Dion is the one that strikes my fancy the most, who I know he played with Detroit and L.A. I don't know if he played with Montreal or not, but a lot of Marcel shooting pucks. So that's how I surmised it's probably French-Canadian. Now, were you born in Canada or no?
No, I was actually born in New Hampshire and in Nashua, which is one of the bigger cities here.
Okay.
My dad was a construction worker, and so he left. He was from Three Rivers, Trois-Rivières in Quebec, which is a major city up there. And so he left relatively young, finished high school and came down. There was a lot of work in the States. This would have been in the very late 60s. And so I was born here, and then they packed up and went down to Fort Lauderdale, which was a much warmer weather.
Yeah. Now, did they move to Fort Lauderdale while you were still a child?
Yes, I was an infant while they were living in Fort Lauderdale. But my dad, because he was a construction worker, he moved around a lot, and then that became my thing too when I finished school.
Yeah.
So we bounced from Canada to here to Florida, back to here, back to Florida, and then there were other places like Denver and Las Vegas. So Daddy was a rambling man.
Yeah. I have a good friend of mine down the street who worked in construction forever, but he's also a really good surfer. He's not a champion. I mean, he didn't enter the competition, but according to him, and I believe him, he's really good at it, and he's been doing it since he was about 5. It's right on the ocean. Wow. Is where we live, and he said, "You see that, a beach over there?" He goes, "I've been surfing those waves since I was 5," and he's in his 70s now. And
wow.
he said he always took construction jobs around the country where they had good surfing. He said, he'd get me a construction job in Hawaii, I'm gone. I guess he spent a few years there, and wherever he can catch the waves, that's where he took jobs. So that's not a bad way to go through life either, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how, my dad basically retired working in Las Vegas, which, I mean, this was around the time of, just there was a huge amount of construction there. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, well, good for him. So you grew up in Fort Lauderdale a lot, although you said you moved around. And seem to recall your mom is now in the Tampa area. Did you ever live over there?
No, I've never lived in Tampa. She moved there after I was already settled here with the wife and kids in New Hampshire. But we go visit every year. It's a great part of Florida, the whole coast, St. Pete and all that. We love going there, and it gives us a reason to go to places like Cypress Cove and the
Mhm.
other, Playa Linda and so many other beautiful places in Florida today.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Playa Linda, but also you were not all that far from Hullover Beach. Did you ever make it down there?
Well, when I was little, when we lived in Fort Lauderdale, that was, that's you can picture me toddling around there when I was a little kid.
Okay.
But I haven't been in a long time because it's a stretch from there to Tampa.
Oh yeah, yeah, and plus the traffic, and I know all that, but it's worth it once you get there, and then it's really hard to leave because you don't want to leave, but at some point they kick you out. Like, guys, got to go home. You got to go somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so nothing wrong with that. Now, you were basically raised as a naturist nudist. You were clothes free even as a kid, right?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, that we moved to
Yeah,
Fort Lauderdale when I was still an infant, and we'd go to Holliver Beach all the time. So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
Naked camping too.
Oh yeah, 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 very much so. So you entered your marriage, but your wife was not a naturist at first, not even close to it, but now she is.
Yeah, so my wife was raised in a very traditional Catholic family, and so there was absolutely no nudity at home. Even at home, it was a taboo thing. So a lot of hangups there about body shaming and all of that. And so when we were dating, I mean, I was very upfront that I was a nudist, and and she was fine with it, but it took a long time before she felt comfortable enough to go anywhere. And honestly, the first time that she agreed to go was when she was heavily pregnant. I think she had this feeling like the pregnancy body kind of wasn't her normal body,
Yeah.
and we went to our local resort, which is only 2 hours away, which is Solaire in Connecticut,
Oh
which is
yeah,
a
yeah.
beautiful place.
I've not been there, but we've had guests on the show who are members there, so I know that place vicariously through them, and they speak very highly of it as well. Well, it's really good that she didn't mind you being nude around the house, even though she wasn't willing to participate, because we get a lot of letters here, and I shared some of the gist of it with you before we started. But the part that I didn't share with you is that part. The wife says, "It's not for me. You can be nude 25 hours a day if you want to be." And of course, the part that I did share with you is, "I don't want to be nude, and I want you to have clothes on too." Well, then we have a conflict, and we've talked
Yeah.
about that in the show before. But so it's great. Your wife said, "Great, you want to live clothes free, Marcel? Go for broke. Just don't expect me to join." But now that's totally flipped, and she's fully in the game.
Yes, I would say so. She's comfortable being in places like Solaire. We've also gone to the Ledges in Vermont, which is an old-timey free beach, just a lake where you can be nude, and it's absolutely beautiful. And so for me, walking around the house naked isn't my priority. I like to be out, especially either at a nudist venue where there's other people to socialize with, or in the woods. I love to hike, and if it's hot, I don't want to be wearing clothes. It just seems silly.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. What's nude hiking like in New Hampshire? Is that legally allowed, or if you get caught, would there be issues?
Oh, it's absolutely not allowed.
Okay. Now, Vermont is a little more bent toward
Yes.
allowing that, right?
Yeah, Vermont has no, as a state, there's no state law banning just simple public nudity,
Okay.
which is great. There are different municipalities that have laws, but that's the exception, not the rule. Unfortunately for me, even though people think, oh, these states are little and you're right next to Vermont, it's well over an hour for me to get to Vermont from my house. So it's just to get to the border, and never mind
Yeah.
getting to somewhere reasonable. So
Yeah.
then I might as well just go to the Ledges right at
Yeah.
that point. So
Yeah. No, it makes sense. We're talking to Marcel Lamothe today. Make sure I pronounce that correctly. He's a brand new author in the naturism field. And before we get into your books, I should ask, have you written books before in other genres or other fields?
no, so I'm a software engineer, and so I write just for my own. Just I write stuff that I want to read, basically. Right?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I read a lot, and I think you know this is the story that I wish somebody would tell. I had actually started a long time ago when I just got bored with like the stuff on TV. I'm like, this stuff, so much of it is formulaic and just doesn't say anything new, you know? The naturism aspect is very underrepresented.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote for myself for a long time, and I just felt like I was getting better and better. And so I really felt like the naked truth was worthwhile. And the folks that I had, that I asked to read it, that they said you should publish this. I mean, and of course, anybody can publish on Amazon, Kindle Desktop Publishing, KDP. And so I was like, well, I'll put it up there, and if anybody wants to read it, great. I was amazed at how well the book did and continues to do. I sell an average of one copy a day,
Wow.
which, yeah, I know it might not sound much, but
Yeah.
it's for somebody that's a complete unknown. Yeah, it's doing really well.
Yeah, that is one of the issues out there. And I've pontificated on this more than once on the show. We don't have enough people doing what you're doing. We have a number of naturism authors. We've had many of them on the show. That's why we're having you on the show. I wish we had 5 gazillion more. Let's get the word out there and let's just oversaturate the market so everybody can have access to it. And so I'm glad you've joined the fray. And it looks like there's no stopping you because you've come out with a book 1, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And book 2 is either out there now or around the corner. But your first book, The Naked Truth, Jane Cullen, and that's book 1. And I'll just say a little bit about this, and then I want you to tell us what this is about without giving away too much, because we do want people to buy the book. Jane is still a high school student, and I want to ask you about that in a moment. But she is 18, so she's legally, able to do things, and she ends up at a nudist resort to do a report. But I'll let you take it from there. But before you do, have you received any feedback or any pushback on, hey, Marcel, she's still in high school, what are you doing? Or does everybody understand? No, she's 18, she's a young woman, she's confident, everything's fine.
I mean, I guess the sort of half joking feedback is, look, people say things like, this isn't very realistic, right? You get not the naturism part. Nobody says anything about that. Oh, she goes to nudist resort for the first time and she loves it and she gets naked. No, nobody ever says that's not realistic.
Yeah.
The fact that she is given a lot of responsibility and and does what she's asked, right? She's tasked with things and she gets it done. That I think is the part that people are like, she's only a kid. She's 18. That's not how teenagers work at all, And I'm like, well, yeah, but come on, it's a story, right? So
Well, some teenagers do work that way, though.
they do.
And a lot of times it's from the naturist community because they have so much confidence coming out well
Yeah,
before they're 18. It's like, okay, I'm 18, going on 55, and let's do this thing. As opposed to I'm 18, I have to text, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, whatever. There are some very mature 18-year-olds. When you talk to them, it's like, are you sure you're 18 or are you 55? You look 18, but you're acting 55.
absolutely.
Yeah, so to me, that makes perfect sense. But I can understand most people saying, hey, no 18-year-old is this sophisticated, but we also know that's not true. So let me turn it over to you, The Naked Truth, Jane Cullen, book 1. What is this all about? Just give us a good overview, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the goal of this, when you write fiction from an author, at least from my point of view, I think of it as I could have written this as a nonfiction book. I could have just sat down and said, this is what naturism is all about, and this is how it intersects with art and philosophy and politics and all these other things. So in my brain, it's sort of taking those bullet points, the nonfiction parts, and wrapping a story around it. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to make this entertaining. So it starts with this, normal girl, Jane Cullen, who in my head is sort of a modern day Jane Austen.
Yeah.
She's not exactly shy, but she's not bombastic either. She's in the modern world, but she has a bit of an old timey flair to her. She's not out there making TikToks. And so, and so she's in this journalism class and she's been tasked with going to visit the local nudist resort.
Yeah.
Every kid knows at the high school that there's this nudist resort next door, on
Yeah.
this island. So she just kind of grin and bears it. Like she shows up and she's pleasant enough, but her mentality is basically, let's just get this over with. And she's thinking she's got her, she's wearing a nice dress and she's going to absolutely stay dressed and
Yeah.
go through this weirdo place, write up the report and just cross it off her list.
Yeah.
So, of course, because of reasons, she actually does get undressed and actually finds herself enjoying it and relaxing it and wanting to go back. So my goal there was to take the reader, whether they're actually a naturist reader, and have them follow Jane and go, well, of course, that's exactly what it's like. Or have it be a textile person, a non-nudist naturist, and have them go through her eyes and go, oh, so that's what it's like. Well, that doesn't sound so scary.
Well, I'll tell you this. One of the things that I appreciate the most before we get into the actual development of this character is, Lisa Monroe, the co-host here, is an outstanding writer. Eventually, we're going to get her on the show to talk more about her writing, but she's a gifted writer. And I had a chance to listen to your book, the audio version. And then I said, to Lisa, I said, do you mind listening to a chapter or two if you have time? Just give me your thoughts. Because, trying to put all this together for the interview. And she did. She listened. I don't know how much she listened to, but she listened to quite a bit and got back to me. And she said, well, first of all, it is not porn. So hats off to him right away. And in an email that you sent to me talking about this book, The Naked Truth, you said, first, as we all know, there's a lot of stuff that calls itself nudist or naturist that's actually just smut.
Right.
And that is true. And we've talked about that here. And I don't have a problem with erotica, but I think it needs to be categorized properly.
Right.
So I set off from day one to make a truly naturist story. Well, there you go. And you're talking about respect for yourself, respect for others, respect for the environment. And that jumped out at me, too. And then I didn't say that to Lisa. In fact, I didn't say anything to her. I said, just give it a listen and let's talk about it. And that was her first comment. So definitely hats off to you. And it proves it can be done. You can write a true naturist story, what it's really all about. And it's not about getting your clothes off. It's about so many other things.
Right.
And you don't have to, identify specific body parts or acts in the back room. So hats off to you for that. A really highly respected author just for that alone before we get to everything else.
Well, I appreciate that. I honestly, in my head, was trying to make this the kind of book that you could, if you were a nudist, you could hand this to your kid. If you have a 10 or 11-year-old that likes reading books, they could read this. And, there's very mild profanity in it. In fact, I use it as a joke at the beginning. When Quinn says you can zip line into the nudist resort,
Yeah.
and Jane basically says BS, which is a natural reaction, right?
Yeah.
And Quinn is like, we don't use that kind of language here. So I use it as a joke of, that's why there's very little profanity in the book. But yeah, I wanted to write a wholesome book. And if I can jump ahead just for a second.
Yeah.
I think of the first book as, and the first and the second book as almost yin and yang, where the first book is the light, wholesome, almost a fairy tale. And one of the complaints that I've gotten, which I think is valid, is nothing really bad happens. There's not a lot of drama. It's a very cozy, low stakes kind of a book. And that was intentional. I wanted to write something that was kind of relaxing.
Mm.
The second book is much darker. It's high stakes. There's stuff is happening to Jane that is, it's the big leagues now. The kid gloves have come off and she's got a lot more to deal with. And while it's still not erotica, because it would be awful if I flowed the sequel into that, she does have a girlfriend and it does get into sexual relations. And I use that as an interesting plot point of when you are a nudist and you're nude all the time, but then you have a sexual life, there's definitely a boundary there, but it could kind of mess with your mind a little bit of we could do this here, but not here and not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some, it's a much more adult book, even without it being erotic.
I know I've mentioned this before on the show, and I probably should mention it more often. People say, well, it's not sexual. I'm a naturist, by golly. Totally negating the part that we're human beings who are sexual creatures. And that's dishonest as heck.
Right.
I know when I see what I consider to be an attractive woman, by my standards, not everybody has their own. She's hot, she's not, and you can disagree. No, I think the first one's not too good looking, but the second one is, whatever, as long as you don't make life decisions based on that. But I'll see somebody like, wow, she's really good looking. But that's basically the end of my thoughts. It's not she's good looking. I wish I could do this, that, and the other thing with her, behind the cereal aisle at the local grocery store. No, I that's where the difference comes.
Yeah.
A non-naturist or people in society will say, hey, she's pretty good looking. I think I'll go talk to her, get her phone number, and maybe, in the back seat of my car before I leave. Well, no, that's not what it's about at all. But to totally say, well, I'm a naturist, therefore I don't notice such things. I guess it's possible for some people, and I'm not putting them down if it is, but for the most part, we are human beings who notice things around us. We just don't act upon them. And we, as you said, respect for yourself, respect for others, respect for the environment is what we're really all about, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the we're all human is really where the second book is going, especially since we're in Jane's head and we get to start seeing all the hang-ups that she has, all the weird what she really thinks of herself and all of this. So I'm excited. I think that the first book is, if I do say so myself, I think the first book's pretty good, but I think the second book and I have beta readers for the second book.
Okay.
And I have gotten I really think it's next level. I think it goes much deeper. Again, the first book is very much like a fairy tale. It's almost very surface, and the second one goes much deeper into the psychology of all of this.
Okay. Does book 2 still take place at this nudist resort or not necessarily?
It definitely starts there.
Okay. One of the things I got a kick out of, because I've heard this story before in real life, so I know it really happens. Jane goes to this nudist club and gets fully into it, loves every second of it, and goes to tell her parents about it. And at first she was a little apprehensive, like, oh boy, here we go. All heck's going to break loose. But without giving too much away, eventually her parents showed up at the resort too, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I when I set off to write this book, I wanted to make it a comedy. I think that using humor to diffuse, I mean, nudism is full of jokes and, it's a hilarious topic anyways. We have a scene where Jane gets so comfortable being nude that she accidentally walks outside of
Yeah.
her house, and
Yeah.
the neighbor, the old codger across the street, gives her this goofy grin, and then she realizes a mistake she's had.
Yeah.
But also, when she gets the job at the resort, the owner, Bill, gives her a keychain with Donald Duck because he's famous for not wearing any pants.
Yeah.
Which circles back to what you were saying when she has the big reveal. She tells her parents, I have a big surprise for you, and she pulls out the keychain. They go, you're going to be working at Disney World? Like, they just miss it by a mile, and then
Yeah,
she's got to be like, no, I'm a nudist now.
Yeah.
That's one part that I really enjoy is
Yeah.
coming up with jokes and trying to make people, hopefully laugh.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed that. I think she said something like, when they asked, "Oh, you're going to work at Disney?" She said, "No, it's all." And then she said, "Never mind. Anyway, the reason I'm here is."
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She gets flustered all the time. Like, no.
Yeah. Obviously, book 2 is completed. Is it too soon to think about book 3, or in your mind, are you already working on something?
There is no book 3. So Jane, this is probably the end of Jane. I didn't even set off to write book 2. It was supposed to be a one and done, but
Yeah.
As I was approaching the end, I had I was like, it was going to be another chapter. And then I was like, no, this is too big to be another chapter. And it just grew into a whole other novel. I'm starting to work on my next writing project. My idea is to not write these big 300-page novels, but instead do much shorter, around maybe 100 pages, but have them one after the other. So they'd all be set in probably a nudist island. And while this one is Paradise Cove, which is a nudist island, but it's really like a key, like a Florida key, right? It's a barrier. In the first book, in the Jane Cullen book, it's just right off the coast. But this would be an island that's just way out in the middle of nowhere, like kind of like a Hawaii type of island, not just there's a bridge to go on and off. The idea is that it would be almost like a TV show. Like if you think of a TV show where, every episode is like an hour long, this would be like every episode is one of these novels. And it would just make it that much easier to just get them out at a regular cadence instead of the sort of once a year thing that I'm doing right now. But the entire series would have a big story arc, again, like a TV show that builds up over the season to something. So I think that's where I'm going to go. And the nice thing about that is it'll let me have the locals, so the characters that you just come to expect all the time, but it'll also allow me to have guests that are like, for this episode, these are the guests that we kind of focus around. And it'll probably still have the comedic aspect, but it'll probably be more of a mystery kind of a thing, like what, because it's when you're doing this episodic thing, you kind of need some kind of hook over and over again of, what's going on here. So
Yeah.
It's early days, but that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. So it's safe to assume Jane Cullen will not be a part of this series that's coming up? She's done? Or will she make an appearance?
Who knows? Maybe
Okay.
she'll be one of those special guests.
All right. Well, I hope so. People are going to get to know Jane Cullen really well, so I think it would behoove you to bring her back, at your leisure or at your behest, whenever you feel like it. Basically, you don't want to inundate the crowd, but
Yeah.
It was something you said again in the email that you sent to me about the book, The Naked Truth. Your goal is to bring the reader into this world through Jane's eyes, which you did very well. There's no question she's explaining everything to the reader. And if the reader is already a nudist, my hope is they react with, yes, that feeling of liberation. Yes, that's exactly the feeling. And if they're a textile, my hope is they react with, that actually sounds pretty nice. Maybe I should try it out.
Right.
And maybe that's our goal as naturists, to get non-naturists, like, it's actually normal. It's how we were born. It's how we were intended to be. And that's why it feels so normal when we take our clothes off, and to get them to at least think about it and perhaps try it. That's a great feeling too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what nudism is to me. Like there was a thing on social media a few months ago where somebody said in a couple of words, describe what nudism or naturism means to you. And I just wrote freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple.
We are talking to Marcel Lamothe today, a brand new author from New Hampshire. A couple of books out there we want you to check out. The Naked Truth, Jane Cullen, Book 1, and The Ocean's Daughter, Jane Cullen, Book 2. And Marcel, before we continue on, how can people get these books? How can they find you, your website, anything you want to put out there?
Yeah, so the books are all on Amazon. I'm using their Kindle desktop publishing platform, KDP. So if you just go to Amazon and search for my name, or you go to my website, which is Marcel Writes with a dash between the two. And so I have a website, and it's very easy to find. So you mentioned earlier that you've had some of the other authors here, Ted and Ted Bunn, Will Forrest, and Paul Z. Walker.
Yeah, in fact, I was just going to bring that up.
Oh, okay.
You read my mind. You read my mind. Go for broke. Knock yourself out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as I'm sure many of your listeners know, they put out an anthology every year or so of naturist short stories, and then the proceeds go to Doctors Without Borders. And so in this year, the anthology is sci-fi. That's the theme this year. And it's called Bare Skies Ahead. Mm-hmm. So if anybody's into those. So I submitted a short story called After the Storm. It was a little bit different for me writing sci-fi.
Sci-fi involving naturism or just pure sci-fi?
Yeah, no, all of these, the Ted/Will/Paul anthologies, they're all nudist, naturist short stories.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah. Yeah, we call them the great triumvirate of naturist anthologies around here.
Oh, okay.
That's our collective name for those three guys. And all three of them, by the way, write fairly prolifically. They write a lot and put a lot of content out there.
Yeah.
And we need more of them. We need more of you. There's no question about it. You had also in that email, you said America is getting more prudish. which I agree with, which I never thought would happen. I thought it would go the other way, but because everything else is so much more wide open, we can go through the list of things that even 25 years ago, well, that will never happen in America. Yet it's happening all the time on TV and movies. You can't even get away with get away from some of the things that used to be behind closed doors only, and let's not even discuss it. But you said no more gang showers in gyms, private changing rooms in gyms as well. I cannot even begin to understand that. Maybe because the way I was raised and the way, when I went to school, you had one giant locker room. Everybody had a locker. You took your clothes off, you changed. When I played sports, you took your clothes off and you stood around and talked with no clothes on. It was part of the macho thing. If you get dressed too quickly, well, then you're a sissy. Which nobody in high school wants to deal with. So okay, I'm strutting around naked, baby. Let's just have like we're all big tough he-man here. And now it's gotten to the point where everybody, I guess, every guy goes into a private changing room or a private shower, and I'm guessing the same for women. But how did we get there? How did almost everything get so wildly out of control one way, but the naturism thing wildly out of control the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I touch on is, why do people believe what they believe? Why, which goes into these sort of customs and, is it okay? You see stuff on social media that's like, is it okay to, be naked in front of your child at home, like to shower and it's like, are these really questions? Like when I was growing up, I grew up in a nudist household, but even with just my normal friends and stuff, at home, really, for the most part, it wasn't a taboo thing. Like, are we really asking these questions?
The very terrific Marcel Lamothe, not new to writing at all, but fairly new to writing in naturism books. You can check out all of his books through the links that we have provided in the show notes. And on next Saturday's show, which will be episode 119, part 2 of my interview with Marcel Lamothe. And before we head home for a few days until Wednesday comes along, let's bring back in our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Welcome back, Lisa.
Hey, it's good to be back. I've been away for so very long.
Any coffee or brownies or cookies consumed that you could tell us about?
Well, a little coffee. I finished up what I had, but I didn't have time for any brownies or cookies. Nobody else brought any either. So sorry.
Well, I don't need cookies and brownies every day. That can have an adverse effect on my health. So probably not a bad thing. Just pour down the coffee and life is good, right?
Exactly. And so I'm trying to keep you healthy. That's why I'm not bringing as much cookies and stuff as I used to.
I appreciate that. I finally got back into my workout routine. I had stopped for a couple of months. I had visitors in the home, and that disrupts everything. And it's my own fault. Visitors left. I should have gotten back on track, but I didn't. You know how that goes.
I do.
You develop a new habit overnight, and it's hard to go back. Well, I finally got back on track. And I have found out, this is not medical advice, not trained to give medical advice, but just for me personally, when I work out regularly, I don't have a desire for, cake and pies and cookies and brownies and sodas. I don't have that desire. Now, when I stop working out, oh, baby, bring on the Coca-Cola and Pepsi and the baggage. Oh, let's just bring it all to the table. So it works both ways. I work out, I stay healthy that way. I work out, I stay away from stuff I probably shouldn't be eating anyway. So it kind of works out.
It does. It definitely works out. So, because I feel the same way. And I think maybe when you're not working out, you just don't have anything to fill up your time. You don't have that energy flowing. So you think, oh, I just need to eat something. I'll feel better. And that's not how that works.
No, not at all. Great to talk to Marcel, a brand new author in the area of naturism. I look forward to part 2 next week and checking out his books. He has many more books planned, so just a matter of time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too, because, I like authors. So it's good to talk to another one and see what they're coming up with.
All right. Sounds good, Lisa. With that, we're going to head for the hills. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go out there and have a great clothes-free few days. We'll see you then.
You too, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Everyone, hope you'll be back on Wednesday to hear what's going on.
Sounds good. Well, you've been listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 117 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts. And also on Twitter, you can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked Nudists and Naturists.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked Nudists and Naturists. Have a great clothes-free day.